So let's jump into the topic tonight. I do have a few questions that I want to address, and one of the questions, I kind of hesitated a little bit if I was going to answer the question or not, because it has to do with like calculations and things like that. But I think I will address it, and I'll make some remarks at the end. So the first question for the night is, what's a guide number? So every flash has this thing called a guide number. A guide number is how powerful your flash is, and it's just a number. All right, 40, 80, 50, 60. So how is this calculated? It's calculated based on the subject's distance from the flash times your f-stop. Every time I do this kind of stuff, I hesitate a little bit, because we don't want to introduce a whole lot of mathematics in flash photography, right? People are already a little bit wary of using flash. They think it's hard and stuff. If you start introducing calculations and fractions, it's going to scare people away even more. It's bad enough that flashes, most flashes are measured in fractions, like 1/4 power, half power, 1/32, or 1/1. That already scares people away. In fact, I did I think it was an audio. I think it was an audio on that the other day, talking about this. Some new flash that are coming up in the market right now. Some companies like Profoto, they getting rid of the fraction when measuring flash, because there's no reason this to be fraction. The Profotos, they come like great lights, expensive though, but great. They measure when they scale from 1 to 10, right? So hello. So from 1 to 10. So the Profotos measure from 1 to 10. So 1 being the lowest one, 10 being the strongest one. So there's no really need for you to be dealing with fractions. It's just like the more power or less power. Okay, I mean, it's not a big deal at all. People should get scared. Oh, use flash, get no power, no, none of that. So the question about the guide number, the question that I got was, what's a guide number? And to talk about what a guide number is, we need to talk about fractions. There's no way to talk about it, because we look at f-stops, right? So it's the subject distance from the flash times your f-stop. That's going to give you a number. That's your guide number in your flash. With that information, and then you're going to ask me, what you do with that information. If you revert that equation, then you can figure out how far you need to put your flash based on a guide number. All right, let's do this. So guide number equals, I'm writing down here because subjective distance from flash times f-stop, right? This is your guide number. But let's say you have the guide number, but you need to know how far you put your subject to the flash. So let's say if my guide number is 40, I know, because if you look at the specs of your flash, you will tell you the guide number, right? So let's say my flash has a guide number of 40, and I'm shooting f8. So all I need to do is actually divide 40 by 8, okay? Then I'll have 5.5, which means that it's 5 meters. At f8, if I put my subject 5 meters from the flash, that should be a good light. Hence, as far as we have, this is measured ISO 100. Okay, ISO 100. Now, if you're outside, you have external light. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. I really want to answer the question because it was a question that came to me, but I don't think it's something that you guys should be worried about or not even thinking about it, right? Because the beauty of the digital photography is that you take a picture, you look at it, Is it too bright? You make adjustment, you take another one. It doesn't cost you anything. In the past, every time you push the button, it would cost you some money on the film photography. Today, it doesn't cost you anything. So there's no reason for you guys to get hung up on fractions and that type of stuff. I just want to answer this question about the guide number because it was asked. I want to answer this question. And besides, with the client on, you don't want really to be doing math. I mean, that's just crazy. All right. So guide number is a measure of the subject distance from the flash times your aperture. And let's kill the conversation right there. I don't want to go over on this because fraction scares the hell out of people, including me. So another question that I got is what is field flash? All right, field flash is you can use, let's say you're using two light setup. You have your main light here, and let's say that the main light is lighting this side, and there's too much shadows on this side, right? You could use another flash here on a lower power just to fill the flash. Field flash is pretty much what the name says. It fills the shadows from the main light. You get a main light here, and it hits here, it lights this side, and this side is in shadow. So you can bring a little bit of another light here, or you can bring a reflector, or or a flash, a speed light, something in a lower power. Your field flash should always be lower power than your main light or key light. Key light, main light's the same thing. Okay, so that's what field flash is. But now, some people will say, oh, but how much percent? Because there's this whole, I mean, there's this entire theory on, oh, your field flash should be 30% of your key light, blah, 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 blah. I listen to this and go like, yada, 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 yada. Take the damn picture, look at it. If it's too bright, kill the light. If it's too weak, increase the power. That's what it is. Move the light closer, move the light further. That's what it is. I don't want to be dealing with client and be doing like, oh, is this like 30% of the key light? And I mean, that's crazy. Okay, so it's good to know, but is this something that really, when you're running and gunning on a photo shoot, you don't really want to think about this, right? Because again, if you're shooting outdoors, you have all other kinds of environmental things that will affect your photography. Okay, so, and the third question that I got is like, do I need a tripod? Which is a really interesting question. A tripod. I would say yes and no. It all depends what you shoot, right? I remember when I shot motorcycle races, I saw a lot of photographers like with big lenses. They would shoot in a monopod, right? So the bike would come, they would go whoop and pan with the monopod, the camera on a monopod. I tried it. I couldn't get one single shot. My thing was like panning. I always pan with my hand, with my buddy. But I tried the monopod thing. I could not make it work. Now the tripod, sometimes I use the tripod when if I'm shooting headshots. If I'm static, I put my camera on a tripod, and then I shoot on a tripod. Other than that, I never use a tripod. If I'm outside shooting families, weddings, whatever it is, I never bring a tripod with me because I don't use it. Okay? I don't want to be behind the tripod. I think the tripod limits a lot, and it increases the time that you're shooting because now you're moving tripod. You get the camera out of the tripod and move to location B, put the tripod on and fix the height and all of that stuff. It's just you spend more time messing with the gear than really talking to your client, getting to know your client, making that connection. Remember that I keep talking here on this channel. Photography is about connections, right? Photography is about people. So it's not about gear, it's not about anything like that. If you mess with your gear too much, there's something wrong. You shouldn't. I remember teaching a workshop one time outdoors, and this guy showed up with a tripod. I said, fine, okay. I'll tell you this. I had about like 12 or 15 people in that workshop. And everybody would shoot. Everybody would shoot, and then he would be there messing with the tripod. And you would go through, everybody would shoot, and he hadn't finished messing with the tripod yet. And I would ask him, are you done? Can you shoot? So I give him a minute, and I would give him a minute. He would take one picture. We got to move. And then I would move. He would take the camera out of the tripod and close the tripod and move it and set it up again. By the time he would be ready to shoot, it's not a good choice if you shoot clients. Now, Gilda brings a good point here. It's important if you shoot landscape. Yes, it is. And if you're going to do like long exposure photography, if you're doing something that requires long exposure, then you need the tripod or at least something to hold the camera steady, right? Landscape, yes, that's good. But for clients, I wouldn't, I mean, other than headshots, I would not worry about a tripod really. Okay, cool. So this is what this question I have today. So let's talk a little bit about why do I want to come back to this topic today about the triangle exposure, because the exposure triangle, because it's something really basic. It is something really basic. We all here should know this already, but more and more I find when I'm teaching or when I either workshop or mentoring, when I'm with people here with me, or sometimes I ask questions, I'm always baffled by the number of people that cross my path that don't know how the exposure triangle works. This is a very basic concept, right? And a lot of photographers still don't know how it works. So that's why I decided to talk about this tonight. So the exposure triangle is made of three things, right? Your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. Your shutter speed is nothing more, nothing less than how fast you're shooting. Okay, I usually shoot at 1/200 of a second. The slower your shutter speed is, the more chances you have to introduce camera shake, because we all shake. Although you don't see it, we all shake a little bit. If you go down too much on shutter speed, the more chances you have to introduce camera shake. Okay, I usually keep at 1/200, 1/160. I sometimes go down 1/100, but that's a different type of shooting. When if I have a low light situation that I need to introduce more light into the camera, and I need to slow down the shutter, I will slow down, but I'll anchor myself. I'll bring my elbows over here, and I'll bring the camera and I'll take a deep breath, hold, and shoot. And sometimes I hold, and sometimes I let it go slowly, and I'm shooting when I'm exhaling. All right, those are the techniques that work for me. Each one of us have a different way of doing this, and this is if I'm shooting like 1/80th of a second, 1/60th of a second, because the slower your shutter speed is, the more light you get into the camera, right? Because your sensor is going to be exposed longer. Okay, so that's one leg of the triangle exposure, the exposure triangle. I keep saying triangle exposure, the exposure triangle. The other leg is the aperture. The aperture has a big effect on your images. There are actually like physical blades inside the lenses. The physical blades inside the lens that they open and close as you move your aperture, right? The higher the number, the closer they're gonna be. So you're cutting light from the camera. The lower the number, the wider it's gonna open. So you letting it come to, you let it come more light into the camera. All right. So Gilda is asking, what do you think about f-stop like 1/4 for portrait photos? I think it's all right. I mean, I've taken photos like at 1.2, it's okay. You just need to nail the focus, right? One thing that you need to be certain that you are focusing, on the eye, okay? You're focusing on the eye. because that's where your eyes go. If the eyes is blurry, I mean, probably the image is not going to be a good one, right? You focus on the eye needs to be tack sharp. Now, if you open the aperture too much, like 1.4, 1.2, it's very likely the eye, if you focus on the eye is going to be in focus and the tip of the nose is going to be out of focus. This is something that you need to be aware, right? Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. When you go down to 1.4, 1.4, 1.2, it's not easy. It's not easy. 1.8, you can start handling. 2.0, it's a good compromise there. But when you go down to 1.4, 1.2, yeah, it gets hard. It gets really hard to shoot at that point, because you need to be, remember that focal plane. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. Focal plane, right? This is your focal plane. This is the plane that the sensor is pointing. If you're shooting at 1.2, and if you shoot a little bit sideways, the image is most likely going to be blurry. It's not going to be 100% sharp, because your focal plane now is pointing that way, and because you have a depth of field that's too narrow, the eye is not going to be facing the sensor 100%. So that is that's one of the problems that we have when you shoot wide open like that. So I'm seeing photos totally sharp in the full body. Yes, you can do that. You can't do that. That's fine, as long as the eye is in focus and everything is in focus, because it's all the same focal plane. Just think about this. It's the focal plane, right? If you focus on the eyes, if I guarantee you, I'm quite certain that if you shoot like a 1.2 and focus on the eye, the tip of the nose is going to be out of focus, because this is the difference in focal plane here. Remember that bokeh happens before and after the subject, right? After the focus point. If you focus here, whatever is so I have a microphone here. The microphone is over here. So if I'm shooting from there, focusing on my eye at 1.2, the microphone is going to be out of focus. My eye should be in focus, and back there is going to be out of focus. So the bokeh happens before and in front and back of the camera. It's not of the subject. It's not only on the back. That's why you need to be careful when you do that. Okay, and when you say, "Oh, I see pictures at 1.4, the full body, they're 100% sharp," it's possible to do that. It is possible to do that. Yeah, I mean, focal length will also. Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's correct. Focal length will also affect the depth of field. Okay, so remember, you keep talking about compression, right? Remember, keep talking about compression. Go at 200. You go all the way over there, and you zoom in. The compression is going to get more compression. The background is going to be closer, and you're going to get a little bit of more bokeh into that picture. Okay. Exactly, that would be a good top for live shooting, Mark. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that it is possible to shoot at f2, at f4, and still have sharp images. It's possible. Is it easy? You have to have practice. It's not going to happen. I mean, I have a 50 millimeter 1.2. Hey, Chanel. I have a 50 millimeter 1.2. I hardly ever shoot this lens at f.2 because it's really hard to nail focus. And like I said, a lot of times you nail the eye and the tip of the nose is out of focus. So it's a preference. And I really, for instance, this lens here. This lens is a 135. That's a prime 135. 2.0. At 2.0, this lens creates beautiful bokeh. I don't really need more than that. I mean, one thing that I think that a lot of photographers, some photographers need to get away from is everything needs to be super blurry in the background. No, I mean, blurry is fine, it's beautiful, I like it, but remember, this is to isolate the subject, right? This is to isolate the subject. So that's how you isolate the subject from the background. So you create decent bokeh back there, it's fine. Don't get hung up on those numbers. Oh, I need to shoot at 1.4, I need to shoot at 1.2. No, because what creates bokeh? Do you know what creates bokeh? So bokeh is created by the aperture, wide open aperture. Okay, three things. Keep that in mind. Aperture, right? The wider you are, the more bokeh you're gonna have. Your distance, camera distance to the subject, the closer you are, the more bokeh you have. And subject distance to the background. The further the subject is from the background, the more bokeh you have. So this is essential when you choose the locations you're shooting. I was mentoring a photographer here years ago, and she was like, so she asked me, I'm sorry, I asked her, send me your 5 best images, your 5 best images, and she sent me, and there's one picture of a girl sitting down against a azalea tree. And so I looked at the pictures and I told her, let's talk about this picture. So what was your idea here? She said, yeah, that's one of the things that I don't understand. Why? I was shooting at 2.8. Why is the background not blurred? And I said, well, how far was she from the tree? She said, oh, she was pretty close to the tree. I said, that's the problem. It's not just opening, because she thought she should have more bokeh because she was wide open to that lens at 2.8. She had some, but she didn't have enough bokeh for her taste. And I said, when I told her that's one of the problems. So you need to have distance from the subject to the background to create bokeh. It's not just the aperture. So it's the aperture, it's your distance, the camera distance to the subject, and the subject distance to the background. Those three things create bokeh. Right? It's not just the aperture. And then I was talking to her, or explaining to her. She said, well, I couldn't move her. I didn't have room to move her away from the tree. And I said, well, and then you pick the bad location. So you pick the location that didn't allow you to do what you wanted to do. That's pretty much it. At the end of the day, guys, we are picking locations, we're picking poses. We can't blame the camera. We can't blame the camera for that. Right? You picked the bad location where you didn't have room to move her away. You're never going to get bokeh on that situation. All right? So we need to know those things. Okay, so we talk about shutter speed. We talked about aperture. And then now we have ISO to create the exposure triangle. The ISO. ISO is nothing more, nothing less than a digital way for your sensor to capture more light. So the higher the ISO, the more light we will capture. The lower the ISO, the less light we will capture. But there's a catch always, right? There's a catch. The higher the ISO, the more noise you get, the more grainy you get. With some parentheses on that. Let me put some parentheses on that, because actually noise shows on the darker pixels of the images, actually, on the shadows. Noise doesn't show too much when you have light. I have shot higher ISO because I was shooting kids and the kid was running and moving, and I needed a faster shutter speed. I didn't want to work with flash because then we're going to create like weird shadows because the kid was playing around and stuff. So I was shooting natural light, and I had to speed up my shutter speed, and then I had to keep like an f4, f5, at 5.6 for aperture, and I have to speed up above 200. I was shooting at 400 of a second to freeze the movement, right? And I have to bump the ISO, which is fine because it was a daylight. I bumped the ISO with no concerns because it was daylight. So I had enough light around me, around the subject, to really not show noise. Okay, and also this is when full frame cameras shine over a crop frame camera, because full frame cameras, they have a little bit of a bigger sensor. They can capture more light than a crop sensor camera. All right, it's not a reason for you to go tomorrow and buy a full frame camera, No, unless you're shooting like you're doing weddings in dark churches and things like that, then a full frame camera is something that you need. Hey, so other than that, a crop sensor camera, if you shoot in daylight, if you shoot in families, if you shoot in all that stuff, it should be plenty. I shot for a long time with crop sensor camera and have no problem with that. All right, so this is the explanation of the exposure triangle. Now, what I want to show you, okay, here's what I see a lot. Turn my camera on. All right. Here's what I see a lot. I see a photographer going like this, boom, they shoot, and they look at the picture, or they need to make change, and they start. They don't know what to do. I mean, they know what to do, they don't know what the buttons do, right? I don't want to say it's fine, because your clients are watching you. Your clients are watching you work, right? You are the specialist. You are the expert. So you need to know how to move within your camera. And again, how many people stop here for us to mentor? And I say, we're shooting and go like, bump your ISO, and they will go like, oh, ISO, oh, no, this is shutter speed, oh, right? It can't happen. It cannot happen. If you call yourself a professional photographer, the least you can do is to know your equipment. That's the least you can do. You need to know your equipment like the palm of your hand. And this is how I have all of our cameras configured. I have this configured in a way that I'm shooting, I can change my ISO, I can change my aperture, and I can change my shutter speed without moving the camera out of my face. Why is this important to me? I'm shooting weddings when stuff is happening all the time. The moment that you do this to change setting, the bride fell off, you missed a funny moment, or a kid is doing something funny and you missed it, or mom's crying and you missed it because you're looking at the back of your camera, right? So you need to set up your camera in a way that you should be able to change every setting on the exposure triangle without moving your camera out of your face. So I shoot the Canon. This is the Canon R6, but I also have a Mark III, also have a Mark IV, and they all work the same way, right? I'm going to show you what I did, and I don't know how to customize this for Sony or for Nikon or any other brand, but if Canon has this feature, I'm 100% sure the other cameras, the other manufacturers will also have the same feature. All right, so let me see if I can do this backwards. So here I am at 1/60 of a second, f4.5, ISO 160, right? So those are my settings here. So I have this button here, that's right over here, configured to change my shutter speed. Let me see here what's happening. Look, watch my shutter speed over here. Oh, oh, it's because there's a light sensor here. Watch my shutter speed over here, right? On this button here, I'm just changing it. Look, right? One single button. This dial over here changed my aperture, and my aperture is over here. Okay, so from here I can change my aperture. You can see it moving over there, right? Now if I push this button here in the center and this guy over here where I change the shutter speed, this guy over here, this guy together with this one here will change my ISO. Watch my ISO over here on this side, right? So I go here and I go over there, right? So, and this is all reachable to me with my thumb. That's one of the reasons I have this guy here, because now I can just do this, right? So I can reach all of this with my thumb. So here is this one here is going to change my shutter speed. This one here is going to change my aperture. And this two here is going to change my ISO. So just being here, I'm watching and I'm seeing what's happening. Oh, I need to increase my ISO. And I'm looking and on the bottom here where all my settings are, and I'm looking, oh, it's dark, I need to increase my ISO. Or I need to change my shutter, my aperture, or I need to change my shutter speed. So this makes me move extremely fast when I'm shooting, because at that point sometimes I'm still directing the client. I'm still saying, hey, look that way, look towards me, give me a smile, and I'm changing settings and directing them. And a lot of times clients come to me and say, what the hell do you keep moving your fingers all the time back there? So what are you doing back there, right? So I'm changing settings. That's what I'm doing without moving my camera out of my face, right? So everything is over here, and you can make all of those changes here, right? So I think one thing that you should be looking at now, it's a change. It's a new thing that you have to learn how to use. But once you do this, I'll tell you, every new camera that we buy, that's the very first thing that I do. And all the cameras that I have, they work the same way. I have configured them all to work the same way. So if at some point I need to change cameras quickly, the control is the same, right? And like I said before, if Canon has this feature for you to configure buttons the way you want, to do things that you want, I'm sure Nikon also has it, Sony probably has it, and any other major manufacturer will have the same kind of feature. Okay? Gilda is asking, what do you think about the mirrorless cameras? Gilda, you shoot Nikon, don't you? I think as far as I can remember, you shoot Nikon, right? So I shoot Canon, and I'll tell you, this is the R6, the mirrorless R6. This is a game changer. For me, this was a game changer. I don't know how Nikon is doing on the mirror. I mean, Nikon shooters, we have some Nikon shooters here, give us some insight on how Nikon is doing on the mirrorless, because we know Sony kills it, right? Sony was the one who started the whole mirrorless movement, right? And Canon and Nikon just follow through. But I have a bunch of friends who. So Jeff? What's a Z72? Z72 is a camera, but why are you picking that up? Why that particular camera? Remember, some people here don't shoot Nikon. We don't know what that Z72 is. Need to drink some more water. So I think I think there are some features. For instance, it took me a long time to upgrade from. Okay, is it a mirrorless, Jeff? Is it a mirrorless camera? So it took me a long time to upgrade from my Mark IV to the mirrorless, because the first line of Canon that got released of mirrorless, they didn't have dual cards. And that is a deal breaker for me as a wedding photographer. I don't want to put myself in that situation that a card will fail and I'm going to lose some images. I don't want to put myself in that situation. So for a long time, I was waiting for Canon to come up with a good mirrorless camera that had dual cards. Because the first versions, the first ones that they released, they just had a single card, and I was not going to deal with that. So yes, so Jeff saying yes, it's a mirrorless camera. Yeah, try it and see what happens. Well, yeah, here's the kicker on this one. This is why I love this camera so much. I'm already seeing, I haven't been shooting this for a long time, probably like 6 months, but I'm seeing that I'm shooting much fewer images on a wedding because I'm much more confident that the pictures are going to be in focus, right? I go and put that, I know it's going to be in focus because the eye tracking on this camera is amazing. I mean, honestly, amazing. The way I have it set up is very easy to move from eye tracker to not eye tracking. It's amazing. So it's a big differential for me. We have 2 of this. I still want to get another one, but for me it was a game changer. And also the dynamic range. We honestly had, like, Dani was showing me the other day because Dani was editing an image, and she said, "Hey, come over here, let me show you this." And she showed me a perfect lit image, everything in there, and I looked at the image, said okay, and she was like, "This image, the flash failed when you shot the image. This is what came out of the image." And I look at the original version, it was like dark, extremely dark. It's like I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is the same image." It's like, yeah. It's like, this camera is amazing. You don't need to be worried about low light situations because we can always recover, and very little noise. Noise in a quantity, in amount that it's easy to remove in post-production. So I'm sure Nikon is going to, if they don't have that yet. Is there anybody here, is there any Nikon shooter that is shooting with a mirrorless? Any Nikon mirrorless here, or not yet? So I don't know where they are. I knew they were a little bit behind at some point. They have released a few, but I don't think it hit well with the market. Just like Canon when they did the first mirrorless. I mean, I looked at it and said, I tried it. I tried. I was in a workshop. I mean, we were there together, Hilda, on the Lunacy, where I shot an Apollo with natural light there. I tried the Canon mirrorless, the first one that they had. It was good. It was like, it's good, but wasn't as good as I had tried Sony like some time before. I said it wasn't there yet. And besides, it was like a single card. So I really didn't want to mess with that. So I waited for about a year until the R5 and the R6 came on the market. I waited a little bit more to see the reviews and things like that. And oh, the Z72. So what do you think? Hey, we're talking about mirrorless, Brandon. Brandon is a Sony photographer who is merging back to Canon now, the Canon mirrorless. The Z9 is better in focus, but it's too expensive. So what do you think about the Z72 KR Photography DB? What do you think about the Z72? Outstanding dynamic range. How does it do with focus? Does it focus well? Eye tracking and that type of stuff? Face tracking, eye tracking, whatever they call it. So Mark is saying the mid-level cameras are still behind a little. The high end that just came out is awesome. They just need to get the newest technology into the middle-level camera. Yeah. So Brandon just shot with the R5, the Canon R5. He got that camera not long ago. Brandon and I are close friends, so we're always talking about gear and stuff. Yeah, it's amazing. Whoa, $6,000. That is a lot of money. Yeah. Is that the one that you got, Jeff? Okay, the eye autofocus fastens in well-lit situations. I have to admit that in low light, some issues with the eye. Yeah, but you know, it's a start, right? It's a start. And a lot of times, if you've been shooting Nikon, if you've been shooting with a brand for a long time, I don't see myself moving out of Canon. Unless something happens that I don't see myself moving out of Canon, not only because of the images, not only because of the camera and lenses. I mean, they have the Canon, the CPS, Canon, what does it stand for again? Canon something services. Canon Professional Services, I guess, which is amazing. I mean, I send my stuff over there. I have a membership with them. I pay like $300 a year. I send my cameras over there every year. I send my cameras over there. A week later, the cameras are back, certified. Everything works great. I mean, they fix stuff. I mean, I had a 2470 that took a dive. I dropped my 2470 with my Mark IV. I was shooting a couple. I was in a wedding shooting a couple, and I saw this was like so stupid of me because I had my belt, my spider belt on me. Instead of putting down the belt, I look at this bench on the corner of my eye, and I went to correct something in the post, and I just tried to put the camera on the bench, and I dropped it. I missed the bench, and the camera and the 24/7 just like boom on the ground, on the floor, right? And I was like, oh boy, it was in the middle of the wedding, but we had backups, so I brought the other camera, brought the other lens, and we so we kept shooting. But and then I when I got back home, I sent the lens to Camera Professional Services. In a week, I had my camera back and I had my lens back. They just said, well, you have to replace this part here on the lenses. Camera is good. We did a whole checking and everything was good. We just need to replace this part on the lenses. Do you want me to replace it? I said, yeah, go ahead and replace it. Just like new. The lens is here, the camera is here. So it's more than just for the pictures, it's more than just for the lenses. It's also the tech, the tech support that you get, right? The support that you get with your cameras. So Brandon saying R6 and R506 will be tested this week in Jamaica. I still have one of my Sony buddies with me, but later on Sony let go after I get back. Yeah, because Brandon used to shoot Canon, and then he went to Sony, and now he's getting back to Canon again. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest, I after waiting for about a year for Canon to come up with a decent mirrorless camera, I almost switched to Sony. But you know, switching means you get to get new lenses, you get to get new cameras. It is a lot of money that even if you sell your stuff, you're still losing money to get new stuff, and you have to learn everything again. And I heard like the Sony menus that they are really deep. You have to dig down really deep. I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm 100% sure that Canon will come up with a mirrorless camera that is decent. So, and they did. I didn't buy the R5s. The R5s, they have way more megapixels, like 40 something megapixels. I have two R6, and I adore this camera. It's definitely so far the best camera I ever shot with. Yeah. Changing brand is not an easy thing. Yeah. So Brandon's talking about the CPS services. Can't beat CPS. So it means that Canon glass has always been top of glass. Left because impatient. Came back because a few Sony flaws for me that hurt my workflow. It's still great, but yeah, Sonys are great cameras. I mean, and I think they did a fantastic job being the pioneers of the mirrorless market, right? I think they did fantastic. It's just that, man, I like Canon a lot. I like the warmth of the images. I like how it feels on my hand, the buttons, the position, and everything, and the CPS service is just amazing. So, yeah. But I almost jumped ship. I almost went to Sony when they were taking way longer, because I had tried the Sony mirrorless and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And I was like, okay, let's wait a little bit, like 6 months down the road. They came up with the first Canon mirrorless, which I didn't like at all. I don't think it performed okay, but again, had the issue of one single card. That is something that for me, as a wedding photographer, for me is a deal breaker. So, yeah, good discussions, guys. Good discussions. So just let's recap some things here. So, after this week is going to do the lives here, and then we're going to try to move the lives over YouTube. Okay, so I will I will let you guys know when that happens. And also, I will try to do like one live that is just me talking and answering questions and doing that type of stuff. And I will also try to do one live one of the day that active shooting. So I'm downstairs shooting and talking about composition, talking about posing, talking about lighting, and talking about creative shooting, that type of stuff. All right. So once the weather, once the winter is over, we get more daylight outside at 8 o'clock. We're gonna start doing shooting outside, outdoors. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was really good conversation, really good back and forth. I love this. Please keep it coming. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for coming. Let's make it 2022 another great year for us all. And if you'd be kind enough, share this live, because this live is going to be uploaded to Instagram and our YouTube channel in a few minutes. And if you're kind enough, share that with your friends. If you think that you help somebody, it's always some help. Invite people to come to our channel. As you can see, we always have new content there. Okay, I appreciate you all. Again, thank you for your support throughout 2021. I hope to continue to have your continued support in 2022. Have a happy new year, and let's keep moving our photography forward, right? Because that's what we all want. All right, guys. Bye-bye.